All right. Even though you may have recently heard that HaKadosh Baruch Hu needs mitzvot, the reality, however, is that in the very end, He rewards us for fulfilling the mitzvot, for fulfilling the commandments, and He punishes those who go against His will. So even though it's true that there is a need, letaken olam b'malchut Shaddai, to correct this world, to make this world according to Hashem's master blueprint, and therefore there is a need on a spiritual level for mitzvot to be fulfilled. Nevertheless, in the end, we are the ones that directly will also benefit from what we do in this world. And that leads us to Ha'ikara Hadasar, the 11th principle of the 13 principles of our faith. Shlosha Asar Ikarei HaEmunah, which are meant to reinforce and to remind us of our duties, many of which are forgotten in our daily routines. And some, unfortunately, are never thought about. Number 11 is very significant because without it, people may ask, why should I be Jewish? Why should I work so hard? Number 11 involves Sachar ve'onesh, reward and punishment. The principle states that HaKadosh Baruch Hu actually rewards us for fulfilling the mitzvot, and Chas v'shalom, if one does not do his will, disobeys him, there is something called an onesh. As the pasuk says, Mi asher hatali emhenu misifri. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe, I'm aware, quite aware of man's ma'asim, of man's behavior, of man's deeds, and I will reward or will punish him accordingly. Rabbis in Pirkei Avot remind us of the same point and tell us as follows. Remember, every day when you wake up in the morning, you're not just going to work, you're not just here to make a living. Before you set out to do anything, just remember, you have to give an accounting, a reckoning of your ma'asim, not to your boss here, not to your wife necessarily, but eventually, after 120 years, there is a din v'cheshbon to give an accounting of to Melech Malchei HaMelachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the King of all kings, to the Almighty, to Hashem. The Gaon Mevilna explains, what does it mean, din v'cheshbon? Din means justice, cheshbon means an accounting, a reckoning. Why are these two words used? And he explains as follows. Din is for what was done, whether it was right or wrong. Cheshbon is for all those things that we could have done right and we missed out. There is a cheshbon of all the days that have gone by, that have transpired in our 70, 80 years of existence here, that were not productive, that were lost. As Americans tend to use the expression, to kill time. So much could have been accomplished, so much could have been done. Positive things, obviously. Had it been for your word, had you said something, you could have made a big difference. Had you done this, it would have made a big difference. That is the cheshbon. So, after 120, there is a court, what appears to be like a court, as we know it here, where there is a din v'cheshbon on all the ma'asim that we performed or that we failed to perform. Rabbis also remind us, Da lifnei mi ata amel. Remember before who you work. What does that mean? It's meant to remind us that in the end, we're not doing mitzvot for nothing. We have a boss who asked us to do this. And if we have in mind that this is what he asks of us, then we will not only focus on our daily routine, on our daily activities of eating, drinking, sleeping, working. We have another job. We have another tafkid, another important task. And don't think that he will not pay you. In the end, you will be rewarded. You're not doing this for nothing. Rabbis continue on to tell us, now that you have all these jobs, all these mitzvot, remember, another very important statement. Be as careful with the small mitzvot, with the lenient ones, as you are with the strict ones. Why? Because you do not really know which one will pay more, which one is more serious, which one is more significant. There's no way for you to judge. So therefore, what you may think, or what appears to you to be something lenient, or easy, or insignificant, don't belittle it, don't minimize it. Haveh zahir, be as careful with those mitzvot that you think are kalot kevachamurot. You may wonder why the Torah did not write the reward for the mitzvot. If we in the end are going to receive some reward, some payment for the mitzvot, why didn't the Torah state so? And why didn't the Torah state how much of a reward? Well, there's several explanations for this. First of all, the currency upstairs is not dollars or pesos or shkalim. The currency upstairs is something spiritual. Hashem cannot repay us for the mitzvot with this currency that is used over here. It's a spiritual world. Not only is it a spiritual world, the reward that we are going to be receiving is nitzchi. It's perpetual. How could you give something to someone that will be perpetual? You cannot give something to someone in this world that is perpetual because we don't live forever. So what we see from this, not only is the reward spiritual, but the reward cannot be given to us in this world, which is only a temporary world. It doesn't last so long. If Hashem wants to give us a perpetual reward, it has to be in an olam nitzchi, in a world that is perpetual. So the mitzvot have no reward written for them because it's impossible to describe to us what the reward will be in human terms. That's number one. Number two, the rabbis tell us that ideally lechatchila one should not do the mitzvot in anticipation of a reward. You know, there are people out there that do everything properly. They're good Jews, they're observant, because life is good to them. They are blessed. Could you imagine, Chas v'Shalom, what would happen to them? How would they act if things turned around? They lost their job, and they are in the street, or the Chas v'Shalom, they are in a concentration camp. Would they be just as observant, just as meticulous? Would Judaism mean just as much to them? Maybe not. It all depends what their attitude was all along. Was it, I want to do God's will because He asked me to, because it's important? Oh no, I better do it because if not, I'm going to be in Gehenom. Or if I do so, I will be rewarded. There's always a danger if you do something in anticipation of a reward, the mentality will sink in. When things are good, I will be good. If things are not so good, I might as well give it up. Rabbis tell us don't do things in anticipation for reward. Do it as a servant, as an obedient servant. And besides this, Hashem did not want to tell us the amount of reward, because if we were to see, if we were to know which mitzvot offer more reward, we would concentrate only on those mitzvot. Mashal lema hadavar domeh, what is this compared to? To a king who had a big orchard with many trees, fruit trees, and he hired workers to pick the fruits. At the end of the day, the workers came to collect their money. The king asked worker number one, where did you work today? I was picking strawberries. Okay, you get $3 an hour. You, where did you work? I picked the mangoes. You get $5 an hour. The other one said avocados. The other one said oranges. Each one said something else, and each one got more or less, depending on what the king decided. Can you imagine the guy who picked the strawberries being feeling left out. Had I known that you pay more for oranges and mangoes, I would have wanted to pick the oranges and the mangoes. Why didn't you tell us up front how much you pay for what? And the king turns to them, you don't understand. I have a big orchard with many fruit, and all the fruits need to be picked. If I would tell you where I pay more, you would only run to those trees. And who would take care of the other trees? Everything has to be picked. All the mitzvot need to be fulfilled. All need to be observed. So Hashem does not want to tell us how much He gives. Yes, of course, in the end, there are mitzvot that are greater, that one will receive much more reward. And you know what? Don't think that you have the ability to judge. It is impossible for us to judge which one is a greater mitzvah and which one is not on the same level. They're all important. The same is true with averot. That is why the rabbis emphasize avezahir, be careful. You do not know what counts in heaven, what is more significant. And be as careful with the small ones, what you think is small, as you are careful with the big ones. Rabbis tell us, Im lamadta Torah harbeh. If you learned a lot of Torah, just know, notin lecha sechar harbeh. You will receive a lot of reward. How much? We don't know. We don't know exactly. Obviously, if you look at the Gemarot, at the Midrashim, at the Zohar, that praises the Ma'alat of Limud Torah, the level, the greatness of learning Torah, of teaching Torah, then you will be impressed that it's something important. But how much exactly, what will one receive for it, we do not know. Alright, so what happens when we perform the mitzvot? What is actually happening? So the rabbis tell us, when we perform a mitzvah, אנחנו קונים לעצמנו פרקליט. We're actually acquiring a defense, an angel in our defense. Let's describe him as a white angel. He will be our spokesman. He will speak up for us. אחרי 120 שנה. They may be mitzvot that we have totally forgotten about them. When you were 15 years old, and this is a man who's already 86, when you were 15 years old, you once helped out somebody in the rain. You gave him a ride. And that was a tremendous mitzvah. What's the big deal to give somebody a ride? Nobody was in the rain. And he was freezing. And had he been left out there a little bit longer, maybe he would have become very, very sick. Maybe you saved his life. We don't know. Hashem knows the truth. Only Hashem knows what could have happened, what did in fact happen. We don't know all the details. This is when you were 15 years old. That mitzvah can actually tip the scale sometimes. So when we perform a mitzvah, we automatically acquire a praklit. Let's not talk even about the reward right now. The mitzvah gives us a praklit. A praklit is a sanegor, a spokesman, a good angel. If we perform an averah, let's not talk about the punishment. Let's not talk about the consequences right now. The immediate result is that there is a kategor. We have acquired an accusing angel, a black angel. And you know what? Even though there might not exactly be colors upstairs the way we have them down here, but you can see the differences when you get up there between this malach and this malach. They look different. And there are those that are on the defense, and there are those that are on the prosecution side. The rabbis also tell us that nevertheless, even though one may have done something right or something wrong, we have something very special called teshuvah and ma'asim tovim. The teshuvah and the ma'asim tovim act ketris bifnei pur'anut. They act like a shield in times of pur'anut. Pur'anut means when there are terrible tragedies occurring in the world, when there's suffering, when there are problems. The teshuvah and the ma'asim tovim act as a shield, which means that even though we have acquired accusing angels, which will not only be against us in the world to come, they may cause us troubles in this world too, which I'll speak about later if we have time. Nevertheless, the teshuvah and the ma'asim tovim act like a shield, which can defend us or which enables us to repair that which we have done wrong. So that is something that a Jew has to continuously remember, that even though Chaz v'Shalom, he succumbed one day to his Yetzer, and he did not do what he was instructed to do, he disobeyed the Torah, he has something called Teshuvah Ma'asim Tovim, which act in a way that repairs that which was done in the past, no matter what it is. There are some things, unfortunately, that are so severe that one requires Teshuvah, Yom Kippurim, Yisurim, Mitah, but in general, Teshuvah is very, very powerful. And one should therefore never give up hope that even though he's old and he's done everything wrong, that Hashem will not accept his Teshuvah. Teshuvah is something which Hashem gave us. It's a very special gift to Am Yisrael. That is the whole idea of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We just need to remember that and not to push it off. Because there are people out there who like to just push off everything. Everything for mañana. But there may not be a mañana. Because what happens if the person does not wake up the next morning? How many of you have heard of young people in their 20s and 30s not waking up the next day? Or having what's called in Hebrew a dom lev. I don't know how they call that in English, where the heart just stops. No reason. No reason. They try to figure it out later. They don't have an explanation for it. The only explanation that we have is Hashem decided that the time has come for whatever reason. But no one knows when that time will come. Since we do not know when our time will come, the rabbis remind us to do teshuvah every day. And that is why they put it into the Sidur, Slach Lanu Avinu, 3 times a day. Say it. So you should not go away from this world without teshuvah. Obviously, when we say those words, we better mean it. Otherwise, it doesn't really have the same effect. Even though we do not know what the reward will look like, or how much we will have, we do know one thing. The greatest reward of all that the neshama could ever attain is Olam Haba. So when the rabbis tell us, Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek le'olam haba, they mean 2 things. They don't mean every single individual, first of all. They mean the majority. Then why did they say Kol Yisrael? With the exception of those who did not behave like Jews. Kol Yisrael meaning everybody that behaved like a Jew, or identified himself as a Jew. He may not have been observant, he may not have done everything correctly, he still has a chelek le'olam haba. Here they're saying something else. Chelek, what does it mean? Chelek, a share. Some will have a big share, some will have a small share. After all, it does depend on what you did. Not everybody is the same. So everybody may have a share, or the majority may have a share. There's a small list of exceptions of individuals who are so bad that they are not considered part of this group called Israel. But of those who are the majority, there will be a chelek, some great, some large, and some smaller. So the greatest reward that the neshama can attain is called Olam Haba. The greatest Chaz v'Shalom punishment is therefore what? The exact opposite of Olam Haba. What's the opposite of Olam Haba? Anybody know? No, not Gehenom. Gehenom is the opposite of Gan Eden. There's a concept called Gan Eden. There's a concept called Gehenom, which we'll talk about perhaps another time. Yeah, but what's the exact opposite of Chelek L'Olam Haba? Karet. Karet of the Neshama. There's different kinds of karet. Karet means to be cut off. But there's different types of karet. There's the karet where one, Chaz v'Shalom, does not attain the age of 60. It does not mean, don't get me wrong, it does not mean anybody who lived to the age of 52 had karet. Chaz v'Shalom. There are many great tzaddikim, including Shmuel HaNavi, who passed away at 52. That was their time. That was their role. They didn't need to spend more time here. But if somebody is supposed to die of a type of karet, means that his years will be reduced. He will not make it to 60. What if he did something that reserves karet when he's already 70? Well, he could receive karet then too. His days are reduced. That's one kind of a karet. Reduction, there's another karet called ariri, which means childless, chaz v'shalom. There's various types of karet, but the most severe karet is the karet of the neshama, or the nefesh. It doesn't come back, it disappears. It's totally removed, it has no chelek l'olam haba. There is such a punishment, but remember, no matter what the punishment is, this is only said on condition that the individual did not do teshuvah. If there was no teshuvah whatsoever, and that is why it's important to say vidui, to be mitvadet, to confess, to be chozer b'tshuva on whatever we can remember we did wrong. And whatever we don't remember, we ask Hashem, you know, forgive us even for those things that we're unaware of. So anyway, the greatest reward is Olam Haba, the greatest punishment is karet. Why is that the greatest punishment? Because Olam Haba is the ultimate reward because it's perpetual, it's forever. Something that we have no idea what it will look like. But it's the greatest and the most beautiful and the most enjoyable reward that we can ever think of. So if this is the best and the greatest and it's perpetual, could you imagine somebody being left out and not receiving that? You will not get it. I'm not pointing it to anybody here. This individual, you will not have all of this that is awaiting this group of people. You are left out. That is the greatest revenge, the greatest nekama, the greatest punishment. For somebody not to receive even a part of that, that's called karet of the neshama. So far, what did we see? We saw from Ma'amarei Chazal and from Pesukim, it is obvious that HaKadosh Baruch Hu rewards and punishes, and this is not Olam Hefker. To some it may appear, and the reason why to many it appears that there is no din v'dayan, that there is no reward and punishment, is because they make the mistake of thinking that everything is supposed to happen in this world. Reward and punishment, yes. Therefore, those who prosper, who are doing good, are being rewarded, and those who are suffering are being punished. And therefore, they ask the famous question, Madua tzaddik v'ra'alo rasha v'tov lo? Why is it that we see good people suffering, struggling, and we see bad people prospering, getting away with it? It appears that they're getting away with it. But that's misleading, because what did we say until now? Even though I didn't fully elaborate on it, there is reward, there is punishment, but it's not in Olam Hazeh. It's in Olam Haba. And what do the rabbis tell us to remind us of this point? They say several things, but number one, they tell us, this world, in the end, is only a prosdor, is only a hallway before the world to come. What do you do in a hallway? You check yourself, you straighten your tie, right? You make sure you look right, and then you go in. It's only a prosdor, it's temporary. Arai. This is not where we're meant to stay. Some spend 60, some 70, some 80, and some 90. 2 days ago, there was a lady in Brazil who passed away at the age of 124. They asked her a few months or years before she passed away if she was already old. Tell us the secret. She says, I'm calm, I have no worries, I'm always happy. Apparently that's a good segula for long years, but that does not guarantee 124. But it's definitely helpful to be happy and to be calm and not to worry too much.
The Torah says only 120. How could you live to 124?
120 is the...
So the gracious end.
Yeah, it's not a promise. 120 is like an amount of years which is quite significant, especially when you think of it, very few people get there. And number two, that's not the real peshat in the pasuk there. The real peshat in that pasuk that says 120 means that they have 120 years left before I bring the flood. Yeah. That's the basic pshat over there. It doesn't really guarantee man will only live to 120. There have been people who lived longer than 120. A couple weeks ago, there was somebody in this country who passed away at 113. And he smoked, and he drank, and he ate very fatty foods. How did he make it? Because his body did not produce cholesterol. Right? He didn't have those problems. And he was also very happy. Remember George Burns? He lived to 100. He was also a very happy man. He was a comedian. And he had cigars every day, big cigars. So obviously, I'm not encouraging you to smoke. It's dangerous. But there have been people who were known to smoke packs, entire packs every day, and they've lived. It's whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides. But it definitely helps if you have the right attitude, if you have simcha. Simcha means you're happy, you're content, you're calm. You're not nervous or stressed. That obviously helps. So anyway, I was saying that this world is only a temporary world. The world to come is called the Olam HaNetzach. So rabbis tell us, prepare yourself in this world so you can enjoy and reap the fruits of your labor in the world to come. Mi shetarach be'erev Shabbat Yavo v'yochal b'Shabbat. One who has worked on Friday, who made preparations, can enjoy the Shabbat. If you come home late on Friday and you don't make your hamin, you don't prepare the food for Shabbat, you won't have anything to eat. This world is compared to Friday. We make our preparations in this world. We all do what we need to do. And God willing, we will have something to eat. That is why you will find that in the words of Chazal, you sometimes find the term Sa'udah. Hakol mukhan le-Sa'udah. Olam haba is compared to a Sa'udah. That's the meal. That's where you get to enjoy the fruit of your labor. So since this world is a prosdor, the rabbis remind us that matan scharan shel tzadikim ze only la'atid lavo. That the reward that the tzadikim, the righteous, will receive will be le'olam haba, la'atid lavo. Therefore what? Don't be misled, don't be mistaken that what you see here is a fact, is as a result of one's ma'asim. Why? Because we just finished saying that everything is la'atid lavo. Matan scharan shel tzadikim is in the world to come, not here. So what you see here, your perception is wrong. It has nothing to do with one's ma'asim. It has nothing to do necessarily with one's deeds and one's behavior. There's a question, however. There is a Mishnah that says, "Elu devarim shadam oseh otam ochel miperotehem ba'olam hazeh ve'akeren kayemet lo le'olam haba." There are certain mitzvot that if one performs them in this world, he will receive something, some benefit. It's called the fruits. But the keren, the principle, is still reserved for him and waiting for him le'olam haba. There are mitzvot. What do we understand from these? That there are mitzvot that if you fulfill them, you can benefit from them. You will have some benefit even in this world. It's like they say in English, you can have the cake and eat it too. You're going to have something from it here, and it still remain intact. The keren is still intact. Le'olam haba. What are they? Kibud avaim, honoring one's parents. Gemilut hasadim, doing acts of kindness to others. Bikur holim, visiting the sick. Achnasat orchim, having guests over. Hashkamat bet hakneset, going to pray every day in the bet hakneset. Havaat shalom ben adam lechavero, making peace between people, husband and wife. Included in this also is to judge people favorably. Ben ish leishto, betalmud Torah keneged kulam, and the learning of Torah is as significant as all of them together. What is this saying? That these mitzvot are quite significant in the sense that they give you a benefit in this world, plus the sechar that is awaiting in olam haba, la'atid lavo. What do they have in common? So the commentators explain that these mitzvot, what they have in common is sheyesh to'elet le'acherim. Through these mitzvot, others also benefit. In other words, when we visit the sick, when we are kind, and when we honor our parents, others benefit too. And since others are benefiting, Hashem says, you know what, I will repay you in this world too. How will I repay you in this world? So you may have seen the pasuk that says, V'harachta yamim, l'ma'an yirbu yemecha. Right? L'ma'an yirbu yemechem. In order that your life should be lengthened. Does that mean if somebody honors his parents, he's going to live to the age of 500? What does it mean that his life should be extended? So the rabbis remind us that, remember, since the main reward is le'olam haba, la'atid lavo, arichut yamin therefore is not necessarily in this world. It's the olam shekulo netzach. It's in an eternal world. The reward of kibud avaim is in the world to come. But we just finished saying that there is some perot. You eat some of the fruit. There's some interest, some payment in this world too. So what payment can one receive in this world? So one explanation is as follows. There are certain mitzvot that are powerful segulot. They're very powerful. They have a very powerful segula. How would we explain or translate segula? It has a certain ability. It has a certain unique characteristic that helps us in a very supernatural way. Tzedakah tatzil mimavet is an example. You've heard of this? Charity will spare you from death. But wait a minute, everybody dies in the end. So what does it mean, tzedakah tatzil mimavet? A mavet meshuna. In other words, if it's a very unnatural, tragic death, tzedakah has that power that if one continuously gives, he's not stingy, but always gives, even if he's tired, even if he has little money, he's always performing this mitzvah consistently, that mitzvah is supercharged. Anything that is done consistently, you never give it up no matter what, it's supercharged. And tzedakah, not only is it an important mitzvah, you're also actually helping others. Has the segula of latzil mimavet meshunar. So if somebody, chas v'shalom, was involved in some terrible accident, this may be the mitzvah that will save his life. Therefore, in kibud avaim, I explained the same thing. If one does it properly, really properly, genuinely, and it's not easy. It's a very difficult mitzvah to do properly, especially once your parents are old and they really need your help. And you're tempted to put them in a convalescent or old age home. That is when you're being tested. Will you take care of them as much as they took care of you with the same love and dedication or not? And if one does so, if one demonstrates that it's important to him, then ve'arachta yamim, maybe that will be also a segula for arichut yamim in this world too. That his days will be lengthened. What does it mean days will be lengthened? If according to his mazal he was supposed to only live to 68. That's it. Comes along 68, and the Malach HaMavet is about to be sent down to take his neshama. All of a sudden, all those praklitin that we spoke about before, all those defense angels come out and say, wait a minute, but he was mechabed et Abba ve'ima, or he did so much tzedakah, so many people depend on him. If we take him here at 68, even though that's not young, but so many will lose out. They lengthen his life. They give him more years. So it could be that if according to his mazal he was meant to live less, his life will be extended due to certain mitzvot that he performed. That is the meaning of perot ba'olam hazeh, that one can derive some benefit, some of the fruit in this world too. There is one mitzvah that is very unique in the Torah. And it's called ma'aser. Ma'aser means to give 10%. On that mitzvah, Hashem says, not only will you receive the benefit, some benefit in this world, you can actually test me. Behanuni na vezot, Hashem says, test me out. You give, I will repay you. So if you're not supposed to test Hashem. But if you want to, this is one area where you can, and the Torah says, go ahead. Test me out. You will see that I will repay you for giving 10%. Because there is a mitzvah to give charity, but you can fulfill that mitzvah giving just a few dollars a year. And you have fulfilled the mitzvah of opening up your hands and giving to the poor. That's all that's required. A few dollars a year, you can fulfill those mitzvot. Maaser is a whole different idea. And it's not easy for a person to give 10% unless he's in a tremendous level of bitachon. Bitachon does not mean emunah, that he has faith in Hashem. It means that he has reliance. He knows that whatever he gives, Hashem will give him back. He knows that there is no way in the world that he will become poor from giving charity. That requires bitachon. Emunah is not enough. And not everybody has this bitachon. Yes?
My question is, when it comes to tzedakah 10%, when it comes to measuring, especially if we live in this country we parent.
Right. Mm-hmm.
How
do you figure the 10%?
Right, and also depending on a person's income.
Right.
Relatively to his
Right.
life.
Yeah, there are quite a few halachot, and perhaps we'll do that at a different time. There are quite a few halachot and details on how to calculate your gross income or your net income and what you're supposed to give 10%. What is considered tzedakah? What if you pay tuition? Is that called tzedakah? It depends at what age we're talking about. So there are quite a few halachot, quite a few details, and that's a whole lecture in itself. I just wanted to talk about the significance of this mitzvah, and just in general terms, remind you that we're talking about usually the net income, not the gross. So it's after federal and state taxes have been removed, because it's money that you never earned, right? But after that, more or less, depending on what your expenses are, what you're left with, 10% of that would be ma'aser. I just wanted to talk about the significance of this mitzvah, and just in general terms, remind you that we're talking about usually the net income, not the gross. So it's after federal and state taxes have been removed, because it's money that you never earned, right? But after that, more or less, depending on what your expenses are, what you're left with, 10% of that would be maaser. So I just gave you a general answer, but
Right, I mean, I know there's different forms of tzedakah, like time and charity, like a person's time.
no, we're talking about right now money. What you said, time, that's called Hesed.
No, but also that could be
When you give of your physical body, when you help somebody with your physical body, you go see him, you help him with your hands, not with money. That's called gemilut hasadim. And that's even greater than tzedakah, because that you can do with the rich and the poor.
I've also heard that
Yeah.
tzedakah in the term,
Yeah.
of itself,
Yeah.
not being limited to just money itself, also be under the category of person's time.
Right, that's what I just said.
It's like somebody donates 10% of his time besides tzedakah, so there's such a thing, like you're supposed to donate 10% of your time too.
Yeah, you can.
Either learning with other
Right,
persons.
you can give of your time. That's called Hesed. That's not called real tzedakah.
But actually,
Real
that related to the category of tzedakah.
Maaser means of your earnings, right?
Maser, okay.
Maaser means of your earnings, because, if a poor person comes to your door and you say, you know what, I'm going to give you of my time. That's very nice, but I'm dying of hunger. I need food. There's,
Also, like, yeah, person, maybe they're trying to take him to a hospital or something.
obviously, there's no doubt that is a big mitzvah to help out. That's called Hesed. That's called Gemilut Chasadim, which is a form of tzedakah too. All of this is a big mitzvah.
But doesn't that count in the 10%?
It has nothing to do with the 10% of your earnings, of the money that you made. Yeah. It's a separate thing. It's a separate thing, and it's a very significant thing. Anyway, so Maaser is a very big, very powerful mitzvah, not only because it's tzedakah, but because it's 10%, and it shows a tremendous bitachon b'Hashem, and a tremendous love to help those who are in need, and to do the mitzvah of Hashem. So Hashem says, you know what, you can test me out with this. What happens if one does it? This is one area where he will see results in this world too. Just like there are mitzvot that one reaps the fruit in this world, unfortunately there are avonot, there are sins that if one does them, he will not get away with it. Something will happen in Olam Hazeh too. I'm only going to go briefly through them because, it doesn't sound too good, but it needs to be said. And for those who say Bameh Madlikin, every Friday night, they will see it. The Mishnah brings down there, Al Shalosh Averot Nashim Metot B'Sha'at Ledatan. It happens that women can go before their time, can pass away from this world, at the time they give birth because of 3 sins. Either because they're not careful with Taharat HaMishpacha, either they're not careful with Hadlakat HaNer, lighting candles on time before Shabbat, or they're not careful with the Hafrasha of Challah. When you bake a certain amount of Challah, you have to remove a certain amount. That's called the Mitzvah of Challah. But anyway, what do these 3 things have in common? What they have in common is that it's serious business. If a woman is not careful in these 3 areas, there could be an accusation against her. And what happens when there's an accusation? Well, if she happens to be in a makom or sha'at sakana, at a time or place of danger, they can act against her. If she lives her life normally, it doesn't mean that something's going to happen to her the next day. But when she's in danger and she needs help, they're going to open up her books. Anytime a person is in danger, he exposes himself to danger, whether he's a soldier or whether he's in a place of danger or at a time of danger. They open up his books. And when a woman is giving birth, that is a very dangerous time. In the past, it was much more dangerous than it is today. But even today, it's still a dangerous time. And if there's any accusation, and there's not enough zechuyot to make up, to neutralize the accusation, it could be very serious. So what do we see from this? That just like certain mitzvot, we can derive benefit from them in this world, there are certain avonot that even though it's really meant to happen, the consequences are really meant to take place in Olam Haba, after we depart from this world, some things do have results in Olam Hazeh as well. There's even a situation, according to the Kabbalah, a term called Edna Dorita. Edna Dorita, according to the Kabbalah, is a time when Hashem is very upset. In other words, a very, very bad time. Like the destruction of the temple, right? During the Holocaust. That was Edna Dorita. That was a very, very difficult time for Am Yisrael. During the time of Edna Dorita, a person can even be punished for being slack in fulfilling mitzvot. When one does not fulfill a mitzvah to say, he didn't put on tefillin one morning. What happened? He missed out on the mitzvah. Will he be punished for that? Not necessarily. He just won't be rewarded. Now, if he doesn't do it at all, and he could have done it, obviously they're gonna punish him. But Be'idna Dorita, according to the Kabbalah, during these times, they even exact of him punishment for not fulfilling a mitzvah taseh, for being slack, when they otherwise would not touch him. And this is in Olam Hazeh. You want to fulfill a mitzvah very easily? You can go to a place, I'm not going to tell you where because I'm not going to encourage it. You're going to sit down and you're going to have an opportunity to do an averah and you're going to hold yourself back. I don't recommend it because you're putting yourself in a nisayon. You're putting yourself in a test and you may not pass the test. So I'm not going to recommend that you do that, but if you happen to have been anywhere in an area, in a street, where you had the opportunity to do this, you say, I'm going to hold myself back. Yashav velo asa avera receives not only do you receive a mitzvah, you receive a reward for that. In other words, you don't necessarily have to do something to receive a reward. This is an example of sitting back and not doing something. Having the opportunity to do something, holding yourself back, you will be rewarded too. But don't lechatchila put yourself in that situation. You may not pass the exam. If somebody asks for proof that this happens, what would you tell him? What would you show him? That Hashem rewards and Hashem punishes. Well, the best thing is to first point to the Torah itself, how the Torah records how Hashem went ahead and punished Cain for killing Hevel. Right? Hashem punished the Egyptians. Hashem punished Sdom ve'Amorah. Hashem went after Avimelech, threatened him at least. Right? The Torah warns whoever murders, his blood will be spilled too. So there is enough information in our Torah that says that Hashem means business. The problem is that people, for those who don't believe in the Torah, they want to see things that happen in real life. And for that, B'ezrat Hashem, we're going to talk about another time, because that involves the area of Tzaddik v'Ralo, Rasha v'Tovlo, how Hashem actually takes care of business in this world too. And sometimes it appears that something is good, but in fact that appears as good is really bad. Yesh osher ashamur leba'alav lera'ato. Sometimes somebody is given wealth, and that wealth will destroy him. And initially he does not know this. He doesn't realize this until the end, when everything collapses because of the money that he made. Had he not had the money, it would not have happened to him. So that we'll talk about another time. I just want to finish up. Apparently we don't have enough time to get into the second topic of Tzaddik v'Ralo Rasha v'Tovlo. We'll leave that for another time. Just want to finish up with certain segulot or certain ma'asim that if we do, they're exceptional in the way that we receive some benefits from them in this world. Just like I mentioned the example of a woman who at a time of danger has to be careful. If she was lax in those three areas, there are certain positive ma'asim that if one does them, he will be rewarded. One of them, for example, is whoever is careful with mezuzah, whoever is careful with nerot Hanukkah, whoever is careful with tzitzit. There are certain mitzvot out there that if you're extra careful with them, you always check your tzitzit, that they're kasher, not pasul. You always make sure your mezuzot are fine. When we say careful with these mitzvot, we mean that you actually put a lot of effort into them. You don't buy the cheapest mezuzah, you buy the best. You do your friend a favor and check his mezuzot. In other words, Bashamayim, what they're seeing is this individual, Zahir b'mezuzah. he's very careful with mezuzah. For whatever reason. Or he's very careful with tzitzit. Or he's very careful with nerot Hanukkah. There are certain mitzvot like that as a result of them, he will be rewarded with good children, for example. One of the rewards for being careful with certain mitzvot is that one will have good children, good neshamot. You sometimes wonder, you see great parents, tzaddikim, but their kids are just either average or below average. In behavior, I mean, not intelligence. Then you see the most simplest people, poor, barely making ends meet, and their children become great tzaddikim, talmidei chachamim, and rabbis. The rabbis remind us, "Izaru b'bnei aniyim, ki mehem tetzeh Torah." The rabbis tell us, be careful with the children of the poor. From them will come out Torah. The children of the poor, what does that mean? The simple people. Hashem does not want it to appear that only rabbis have children who will be rabbis. So one should not be discouraged in case his father was a simple man, he can never be a rabbi. From the simplest people will come the greatest men. The greatest rabbis have come from the simplest parents. They were not just simple, they were obviously righteous too. But they were not so great in learning. Hizaru b'bnei aniyim, ki mehem tetzeh Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu therefore rewards us for certain ma'asim in this world too, and in one way He does so is by giving us good children. That is a beautiful blessing. If one is blessed with good children, that is a tremendous blessing. That does not take away from his reward to the world to come. It's in addition. Many of you perhaps have read Parshat Bechukotai, right? What do we see in Parshat Bechukotai? That there's something called Beracha Uklala. Parshat Kitavo as well. There's blessings, there's curses. Where does all this take place? In Olam Hazeh, not in Olam Haba. Hashem will give you rain in time. You will have prosperity. You will have abundance. Isn't that sachar? Isn't that reward for our mitzvot in this world? Well, we did say before that Hashem sometimes gives us some reward, right? That's not the ikar. What is this beracha all about then? Hashem says, no, don't think that this is the reward for the mitzvot. If you follow my commandments, if you do my mitzvot, all I am promising is that you will have an easy life. An easy life means your enemy will not pursue you, your economy will do well, and you will have rain on time. Great. It has nothing to do with the mitzvah. It just means our life will be easier. And if our lives will be easier, we will be able to observe the mitzvot with ease and not with difficulty. We will not be persecuted for being Jewish. We will not have to struggle and have to, Chas v'shalom, think of working on Shabbat. We will have enough. That, of course, would be true if all of Am Yisrael would follow in the Derech HaTorah. What is missing here? What's the problem? Why don't we have all that prosperity today? Because of something called Kol Yisrael Arevin Zelazeh. Even though in every generation there are good Jews, there are Jews who perform all the mitzvot, there are those who don't. And we are Arevin. We are responsible for our brothers and sisters' actions. We're all in the same boat. Could you imagine somebody in a boat on a big cruise? He has a cabin on the bottom floor, and he starts drilling a hole underneath his bed. What's going to happen? The whole boat is going to sink. Could he ever say, mind your own business, this is my cabin, I paid for this? Huh? Sir, we're all on the boat, we're all going to sink. We're all one family, we're all one unit, and we are responsible. When we see somebody who's not doing what is right, it could be out of ignorance. We have to have first pity for him. We want him to also receive a reward. We also want him to have a share to the world to come. But we're also concerned for the whole boat. And that is why it's a mitzvah, a very big mitzvah, of I don't want to use the word reprimanding, but pointing out to somebody that, especially that we have influence on, to change his ways. Who do we have influence on? Perhaps our relatives come first, then our neighbors, then our very close friends. We don't have to change the whole world. Lo alecha melacha ligmor. You don't have to do everything. If you can bring back one Jew, one family member, I think just by this, kanita et chilkecha le'olam haba, you would have acquired your share to the world to come. Just by bringing back one Jew. And can you imagine what would happen if every single Jew in the world brought back one Jew? Everybody would be B'ezrat Hashem Chozeh B'Teshuvah. And that is the mitzvah of this generation. That is, of course, the most important, I think, commandment that we have in our time, is to do that, to bring back everybody B'Teshuvah, especially when Hashem is going to help us out. Hashem is actually helping. It's not like 30, 40 years ago where people rebelled during the time of the hippies. Try to bring somebody back with Teshuvah, he'd pull you to the alley, right? You'd become a hippie yourself, Chaz Shalom. Today, everybody's thirsty. Everybody has seen all the vanities and all the gadgets and all the shtuyot, the havalim. They're sick and tired of it. What's next? I look at the magazines, the computer magazines, whether it's PC magazine, whether it's Computer World, and they rehash and recycle the same information. They have a better printer and a better computer, and you have to get this cell phone, and you have to get this digital camera, and this and this and this and this. That's all they have to talk about. All this shtuyot. Pure shtuyot. They have nothing else to sell. People have everything today. Everything they ever dreamt of. What's next? They're finally coming to realize that they're missing spirituality. And they're thirsty. So Hashem is helping. He's pushing us. And if there are people out there who are thirsty, we have to open the door and bring them in and be mezakeh otam. And God willing, B'ezrat Hashem, if we all take a part in this big mitzvah, we will be zocheh to the greatest reward of all that the generation before us did not have. And that is to seeing Mashiach, B'ezrat Hashem, Amen.